Have you ever woken up with the feeling that the day will just be normal? Not bad, just normal. That's how it was for me that Thursday. 6:45 a.m. alarm with Fleetwood Mac. Shower, coffee with almond milk, charcoal gray sweater. I always thought best in that one. Uber to the downtown Austin office. Greeting the security guy. Morning, Brian, how's your back? Better, Rachel, you're like clockwork. Like clockwork. Yeah. I was predictable, reliable, steady. In our open space on the 23rd floor, I launched my morning script. Headphones, 3 Chrome tabs, Slack, and my calendar with notes like Atlas 5-2 pitch prep, client sync, Jared NY, daily with Evan. My day didn't start with coffee, it started with documentation. Because Atlas wasn't just a project, it was my system. My baby, built out of hundreds of calls, sleepless testing nights, and endless spreadsheets. And then, the message came. HR wants to see you, 9:30. Please come to 24, B. Okay, probably about benefits, PTO recalculations, or maybe they wanted me to run orientation for new product managers again. I walked in. There was Sarah from HR, and someone from legal. The vibe? Like an episode of Succession just without Logan's sarcasm. Rachel, Sarah started, and I knew immediately this was bad. Unfortunately, the company is going through a restructuring. I'm sorry, what? This decision isn't related to your performance. Wait, are you firing me? Pause. Sarah nodded, then added, Evan will be taking over the Atlas project. He's now the team lead. A minute. Silence. Have you ever felt the air go thick, like molasses? As if someone suddenly switched the language of reality, and everything you thought you knew now sounds fake? Evan? Team lead? Atlas? My Atlas under him? I didn't scream. I just said, you do know he has no idea how the client sync module works, right? He'll grow into it, Sarah replied, eyes down. He impressed leadership during the last presentation. Oh, right, that presentation. My logic, my slides, my data. Just? In his voice. Guess I forgot to sign my brilliance in the corner. Seriously, should have added a watermark like stock photos. I walked out with a box. Yep, just like in the movies. A box with my Product Queen mug, a cactus, and a yellow sticky note that said, trust the process. Well, I did trust. The process. The people. Evan. In the parking lot, Samira, a dev from my team, texted, WTF just happened. I replied, looks like I got flushed. Make sure the code doesn't collapse. As I drove home across the Congress Avenue Bridge, watching the water below, I suddenly thought, if I vanished, how long would it take before they realized they don't have the map? Because I wasn't just the project. I was the navigation, the strategy. The reason clients from New York, Seattle, even Toronto said, we want what Rachel is building. But you know what? When you're inside the system, you don't see how underestimated you are. And now I was outside. And that was an opportunity. I didn't know how yet, but one thing I did know for sure. Evan can take the mic. But he doesn't know what to say. If you've ever tried to build a product from scratch, not in a team, not on commission, but because the idea wouldn't let you sleep, you know the feeling. When your kitchen turns into a war room and your fridge becomes a whiteboard. I didn't have a team. I didn't have a budget. And I definitely didn't have a TED Talk level CTO with a buzzword arsenal. It was just me, a laptop, a couple of markers, and a whole wall of Post-its next to the coffee machine. It was right there, in my South Congress apartment back when rent for a 1-bedroom was still under $2,000 that I started building Atlas. I named it that because it was meant to carry everything metrics, channels, data, insights, funnels on its shoulders. Compact, intuitive, beautiful. Then came the sleepless nights, coffee stains on the keyboard, and hundreds of rows in Excel. I was literally writing formulas at 3 a.m., falling asleep with my head on my MacBook. Friends would ask, are you building a startup or something? No, just working on a project. Because I wasn't chasing investment. I was chasing meaning. One night, or rather early morning, I first mentioned Atlas to a coworker, Evan. He was one of those people who always seemed like your guy. Smart, friendly, throwing slack reactions on every joke. But you know how some people look you in the eye and others look just above your head? He was the latter. He walked into the office with views of Manhattan and eyes on his career. Never sideways, always upward. One day, after a meeting, he came up to me and said, "Rachel, this is seriously impressive. I see real potential." "Thanks, you're not bad yourself. Maybe, if there's ever a chance, we could pitch it together?" I remember smiling, tilting my head slightly, like I was thinking it over. But inside, I already knew my answer. "You know what, Evan? You're great at presenting, go for it." And he did. With my words, my logic, my demo scripts. He went forward, and I watched the idea I had raised become part of something bigger and further away from me. It's hard to explain, but I thought that was okay. That if you build something meaningful, you can't hold it forever. I didn't want medals, I just wanted Atlas to live. But here's the mistake I made. I thought that if you give something of yourself, people will remember who it came from. Spoiler, they don't. If you don't put your name on the title, slide someone else will. At some point, we got funding. It was added to the roadmap. There were meetings with investors, potential clients, Chicago, San Francisco, Atlanta. I handled the tech. He handled the talking. And he was always the first to receive the praise. I remember at one demo, a client from Deloitte said, "Evan, this is such a mature approach. Is this all your idea?" And Evan said, "We've got a great team. Everyone contributes." And I stood off to the side, holding a sample coffee cup and a heart beating to the rhythm of, "We? Team?" But I stayed silent. Because I still believed back then that the system could tell signal from noise. That people would see who carried the weight and who just walked beside it. I was wrong. Sometimes betrayal isn't loud. No shouting, no blood. Sometimes it's quiet, polite, with a smile and a Starbucks cup in hand. A week before I was let go. Tuesday, morning. We were prepping for one of those presentations they call a C-suite showcase. That's when you show your absolute best to convince the top execs that your product deserves more budget, more attention, and, in Evan's case, more power. Atlas was already in early pilot mode, and I was gathering results, charts, user behavior patterns, everything that could prove the system was working. I walked into the briefing room carrying printouts. Yeah, I still printed some things on paper. Old-fashioned? Maybe. But I believe some ideas need to be held in your hands, not just viewed on a screen. Evan was already there. The smile, the hoodie, the cup with the green straw. "Rachel, don't stress. I'll handle the whole thing." "Are you sure? I can help with the segment visualizations." "Really, it's fine. You've had so much on your plate this week. Just relax." And in that moment, I agreed. Because I was tired. Because I trusted him. Because it never occurred to me that someone could take your words, your ideas, your frameworks, and present them as their own. Friday. The big room on the 25th floor, glass, concrete, and coffee. Sitting nearby, the CIO, the CMO, and even Michael, our CEO. Legendary, cold, witty, everything you'd want in a tech leader if you were a character on an HBO drama. The presentation began. Evan stepped on stage, confident, composed, and started speaking. And I recognized every word, every diagram, every phrase. If you look at the trajectory of client inquiries post-dashboard implementation, mine. Less reporting, more visual patterns, less reacting, more predicting. Mine. We call it Atlas because it's not just a platform, it's a foundation. My line. Word for word, even the same delivery. I sat in the third row, watching a movie where someone else was using my voice. Do you know what it feels like to hear applause for your stolen voice? It's a special kind of feeling. Not anger. More like the silence after being punched. Like the world keeps moving, and you've been left behind. And when the room stood and clapped, I smiled. Because what else do you do when the thief doesn't just walk away but walks away to a standing ovation? Later, in the office kitchen, one of the product VPs said, "Evan really nailed it. You can tell he lives and breathes this project." I nodded, took a sip of water, and said, "Yeah, he's really invested." Then I walked into a meeting room, Saturday alone, and just stared at the wall. I knew I'd been set up. But worse than that, I knew I had handed him the knife. I had turned my back. And I had let him speak in my name. That was the end. Even if I didn't yet know that a week later I'd be called into HR. But even then, one thing was already clear: this wasn't just a fight for an idea anymore. It was a fight for a voice. For a name. For who stood behind Atlas. And I decided, next time they applaud, I'll be the one on stage. After getting fired, silence sets in. Not dramatic silence, just everyday quiet. No morning coffee on the way to the office. No calls triggered by calendar alerts. No more quick catch-up at 2 on Slack. And you think, okay, what happened. It was experience. I've got a strong portfolio. I built a real product. I'll find my next thing. I opened LinkedIn. Updated my headline. Product strategist. Ex-lead at Atlas. Yes, that Atlas. And started applying. Everywhere. Startups, Series B, even a couple of FANGs. Austin, Denver, Seattle. I was ready to move. Ready to take a pay cut. I just wanted to be useful. The response? Silence. Or worse, those templated recruiter emails. "Thank you for your application. After careful consideration, we've decided to move forward with other candidates." Seriously? After careful consideration? 2 weeks in a call from a startup in San Francisco. Something like, "We're building a decentralized platform for the creator economy with AI-powered tools." Fine. Zoom. I put on a button-down, clean background, good lighting, confident voice. On screen, the CEO. 28. Hoodie with the startup logo, a massive plant in the background. "So, Rachel, impressive background, but tell me, are you comfortable working in a dynamic, fast-paced culture?" I nodded. "Absolutely. My whole career was built on doing 10 things before lunch." He smirked. "Yeah, I see that. But honestly, you're kinda overqualified. And, not exactly the most social vibe, right?" I paused, looked straight at him, and said, "No, I guess I'm not great at ping-pong tournaments or Slack emojis." He laughed nervously. "Haha, yeah, culture's big for us. We're like a family here." Family. God, how I hate that word in corporate settings. A family that lets you go via a DocuSign link. Later that evening, I went to a bar with my friend Selena. We sat in the corner. She ordered an old-fashioned. I got red wine. A lot of it. "You holding up?" she asked. "If you don't count the fact that my former coworker stole my idea, my team, my voice, and now gets featured with them in TechCrunch, then yeah, I'm doing great." Selena snorted. "You could burn it all down if you just told the truth." I looked at my glass. He took my job, but he can't replicate what he doesn't understand. She looked at me. "So what are you gonna do?" I sighed. "I don't know yet, but one day, he'll trip over that corner of the deck where I forgot to sign my name, and then we'll see." That night, I walked home through the cold Austin air. I didn't know my next move, but I knew exactly what I wasn't. I wasn't broken, I was angry, and anger is a hell of a motivator. It had been about 2 months since that, "Rachel, we're going to have to let you go." Long enough to erase office muscle memory. I no longer woke up at 6:45. No more opening Slack by reflex. No more replaying Atlas's architecture while lying in bed. I was trying to move on. Really? Wrote a few pieces on Medium. Did some consulting gigs on Upwork. Even went to yoga, once. But when you've been pushed out of something you built like a home, you still find yourself looking out the window sometimes. Checking if the roof started to cave in. One Sunday, I was scrolling through my phone. Usual setup, cup of coffee, favorite balcony corner. And saw a message from Samira. Samira, former teammate, engineer. Quiet, razor sharp. The kind of person who always knew how things actually worked. She never made a lot of noise. So when she reached out first, I knew something was on fire. Rachel just wanted to say, Evan is kinda lost. Client feedback loops are breaking down. Pitches aren't landing. We're losing 2 big accounts this quarter. I reread it, slowly, and smiled. There's a special kind of satisfaction. Not angry, not loud, but warm, quiet. The kind you feel when the world finally catches up to what you already knew. I didn't reply right away. Just leaned back in my chair. Atlas. My atlas. It wasn't holding up the sky anymore. It was starting to sway. The next day, purely out of curiosity, of course, I Googled Atlas AI Product Review Q3. First link, a blog from a San Francisco analytics platform. Headline, Atlas a promising start but now drifting without clear direction. I clicked. Sources close to the project describe internal confusion about product vision, shifting client demands, and leadership that lacks cohesion. I almost laughed, because I knew exactly what had held that product together. Not just code, not just process, but logic, context, the ability to understand how clients think, what they fear, what they don't say in meetings. And Evan? He never had that. He was good at the front, at confidence, at let me take it from here. But when it came time to translate vision into outcome, he had no map. And Atlas? No compass. I opened LinkedIn. Evan was still posting articles with inspirational quotes about growth mindset and leadership in tech. It all looked polished, but I knew beneath the gloss. Cracks. Later that night, Samira messaged again. Do you still have those early roadmap docs? We're trying to reverse engineer some of your flows. I didn't answer. Not yet. I just stared at the screen. At the name of the project that used to wait for my login every morning. And then, I closed the laptop. And for the first time in a long while, I thought, maybe this isn't the end of my story. Maybe once things start truly falling apart, they'll remember whose name was on the blueprints. Even if someone tried to erase it, at some point, you stop waiting for the call. The one where someone finally says, "You were right, Rachel, come back." Number. You take the silence and turn it into a voice. I was sitting in a coffee shop on 11th Street in Austin. My favorite place, no open office buzz. No t-shirts that said founder. Just my old MacBook, a flat white, and an empty Google Doc. I opened a new tab. Registered a domain. The Quiet Architect blog. No name. No LinkedIn bio. No glossy about me. Just thoughts. Experience. Analysis. No shine. Just truth. I wrote about how we lose clients because we don't listen between the lines. How agile isn't a daily stand-up, it's a promise to be honest. How decks get prettier while products get dumber. The first 3 posts? No one read them. I didn't promote. Just dropped links in a couple of product forums on Reddit and Slack. But the 4th post started something. Title. Your MVP is not a demo, it's a promise you better keep. 2 days later, 2,000 views. Comments. This hit way too close to home. It's like my ex-boss wrote this if they were actually smart. Finally, someone who knows the difference between a pitch deck and a product. I laughed. In my kitchen. Alone. With a cup of tea. Not because it was a success, but because I was being heard. No name. No title. Just the work. Then came the invites. First, a podcast out of Portland. Then an interview on Medium. And then an email. We've been following your work on The Quiet Architect. Would you consider speaking at Product Conf in Seattle this fall? Topic: Building Vision Without Hype. I read it 3 times. Product Conf. Seattle. Fall. Main stage. 900 people. The very same kinds of people who once told me to stay behind the scenes now wanted me front and center. I thought about it, wrote the talk, rewrote it, doubted myself. But one night, I opened the closet, pulled out my black blazer, put on my glasses, looked in the mirror, and said, "New game, Rachel. No name, just voice." And that's when I understood. I didn't need recognition to have impact. I didn't need credit to move the industry forward. All they needed to know was this: somewhere out there, there's an architect who still builds things. Right. Seattle. Product Conf. Main stage. 1,000 in the room, a couple thousand more online. Backstage, someone clipped a mic to my collar. Someone else handed me a bottle of water. And someone whispered, "Your blog changed how I think about road mapping." I nodded. My heart wasn't racing. Not because I wasn't nervous, but because I was ready. The stage was bare. Gray backdrop, one screen, conference logo. They introduced me as the quiet architect, strategist, and mentor, known for viral insights in product thinking. No name, just voice. I walked out. Deep breath, lights in my eyes, and began. Let's talk about ownership. Not of assets, but of ideas. I spoke about how products aren't built on slides, but in what we observe. How an MVP isn't a test, it's a promise to the market. How architecture isn't just code and schemas. It's logic. It's legacy. 18 minutes. No slides. Just rhythm and thought. The room? Silent. No coughs, no creaks, just breathing. And then Q&A. A man in his 30s raised his hand. Badge read, PM, Palo Alto Innovations. Curious, a little sheepish. Sorry, it's just a lot of what you're saying sounds like Atlas. Like, really close. Were you inspired by it? I paused. Smiled. Leaned slightly into the mic. Not inspired by Atlas. It's the other way around. Not like it. Before it. The room shifted. Like current through wires, quiet but unmistakable. No applause. Just stares. Listening. I thanked them. Walked off stage. A few hours later, someone sent me a link. A video clip captioned, "Quiet architect drops the mic at Product Conf before Atlas." By the next day, tens of thousands of views. Reddit, Twitter, okay, X. Wait, are we saying she built Atlas? I always knew someone real was behind that project. This explains why it's falling apart now. Why do the real builders stay silent until it matters? Then came the messages. From people I didn't know. Founders, PMs, designers. Even old interns from my team. We always suspected it was you. The way you thought it was in the bones of that product. And I sat at home, in a soft sweater, laptop balanced on my knees, reading all of it, and felt a strange kind of peace. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't blow any whistles. I just told the truth. In my own language, on my own terms. Atlas became a brand, but without a map. And I stayed the architect. The one who drew it all, before anyone else believed it mattered. And the most ironic thing? Now they were listening louder than when I sat in their office. No badge, no title, but a truth they couldn't crop out of the deck. About 5 months had passed since Product Conf in Seattle. I wasn't checking in, not intentionally. But sometimes, algorithms know you better than any ex ever did. One quiet evening, peppermint tea in hand, laptop open. There it was on TechCrunch. Of course I clicked. Come on, you would have too. Everything was there. 2 major clients walking away. API issues breaking internal workflows. Bugs that brought down core systems. Analysts were quoted politely but precisely. Leadership appears to lack a full grasp of systemic design logic. What a delicate way to say. They messed it up. Only with a suit and tie on. Evan had tried to rebuild the architecture. The problem? He never understood the old one. He moved blocks without knowing what they held. Like a child rearranging a foundation for a better view. I knew all this not from articles or leaks. I knew it from Samira, the same colleague who once messaged me. This isn't Atlas anymore, it's Atlas after the divorce. This time, she wrote only one line. He finally figured it out. Not what he envied. Who? I read it twice. Not what, who? She told me about an internal investor call where Evan tried to explain why version 3.0 felt so different. He used words, lots of them. Adaptation to trends. Structural agility. But the investors listened like musicians without rhythm. They recognized the notes, but the music was gone. And then apparently one of them whispered into the mic, "Where's the drummer?" The room paused. Because yes, Atlas without me sounded like jazz with no drums. Plenty of movement. Zero timing. Samira added one more thing. You were the meta map. He drew the route, not knowing the terrain. I laughed. Softly. Not out of spite, but from the quiet beauty of that line. Not vengeance. Closure. The final act of a play where you already know how it ends. And it's not revenge. It's recognition. Of course, Evan didn't vanish. People like him don't disappear. They migrate. He's probably already pitched himself to another startup. Rebranded his failures as lessons learned. Updated his LinkedIn to say, led innovation in product scale-up. But he knows. Now he knows. He saw the posts. He heard the speech. He read the comments. He realized that respect isn't something you can claim. It's something you build. Late nights. Spreadsheets. Sticky notes on the fridge. Belief in an idea long before anyone else cares. He didn't envy the diagrams. He envied the trust. The structure. And the silence where real things are born. I didn't celebrate his fall. But I let myself have one evening. Glass of wine. Old school jazz on the speakers. And a note stuck to my fridge. Without the drums, it doesn't play. That morning, I woke up without an alarm like I had for the past 6 months. But this time, something felt different. One notification on my phone. LinkedIn, a message. From who? Dan Harris. Senior Vice President. Atlas. He hadn't said a word the day I was let go. Back then, he just sat there hands folded, staring at his shoes while HR read the script. But now, he was in my inbox. Rachel, we know we made a mistake. Atlas needs you. Without you, it won't survive. No preamble. No, hope you're well. Just, we need you. I reread it 3 times. Then I plugged in my phone and went to make coffee. Funny. 6 months ago, I couldn't breathe from the weight of it. Now I smiled. Not bitterly. Just calmly. While I steamed the milk for my cappuccino, the shape of the reply was already forming. Not harsh, not clever, just precise. Thank you for the offer. I'm not coming back. I consult. On my terms. I hit send. And it felt less like a reply. More like a spell. That exact moment when the power comes back to your hands. An hour later, his answer, when can we discuss the details? The meeting happened at the Atlas office. Yes, that office. The one where I had once stood, barely able to keep my legs steady. Only this time I didn't come in with hope. I came in with a laptop. Gray blazer. White sneakers. Hair pulled back. Expression neutral. Not cold. Just professional. They were already seated. Dan, 3 from legal. a project manager I didn't recognize, and Samira, the one who'd been messaging me from the front lines all along. I sat down. No greetings. Just opened my laptop. Slides. Structure. Logic. Failure markers. Timeline of collapse. A roadmap to recovery. No fluff. No fluffing egos. Only then did I look up. You want Atlas to live? It can. But only on my terms. Dan swallowed. Slightly. What terms? I smiled. Just barely. I'm not an employee, I'm an external partner. My own contract, my own budget line, full team autonomy. I choose who I work with. I don't do politics, I do results. And yes, my logo will be at the bottom of the final deck. Black and white, minimal, but visible. Samira smirked. You think they'll agree to that? I looked at her, then at Dan. They already have. They just don't know it yet. We signed the contract the next day. Not because they were generous. Because they had no other option. I didn't return to the office. I dialed in on Zoom. No open space, no keycard, no company laptop. Just sessions. On my terms. Atlas moved again. Not because someone pushed it, but because someone finally picked up the compass. Sometimes Samira texts me. I see him, Evan. Quiet now. Just watching you work. I reply with only one sentence. Some build careers. Others build structures the kind you're asked to return to. And yes, walking into a negotiation room with a laptop instead of hope? That's a skill. I have it. I'm sitting in a small studio in Brooklyn facing the microphone. A cup of coffee, soft lighting, the sound engineer waves. We're rolling. This is a podcast. They introduce me. Today with us is the author of the blog The Quiet Architect, Atlas strategist and consultant whose ideas have transformed the approach to products, Rachel Marlowe. I smile, take a deep breath, and start. When it all happened, I thought I needed recognition, applause, a slide with my name, a team lead badge. But then I realized, no, what I needed was space. Space where ideas are protected by truth, not by volume. Where my voice sounds not through someone else's tone, but at my own frequency. The host asks, what did you feel when you realized everything had flipped, that now you were in the driver's seat? I laugh softly. I felt lightness. Because all this time I was trying to hold on to something that no longer worked. Evan thought he stole my project. But in fact, he just gave me freedom. Freedom to keep building, only now without the ballast. The recording ends. No applause, but it's not needed. I no longer crave approval, only action. The camera pulls back. I'm in my home office, hair in a bun, an empty cup. On the screen Zoom. My new team. 6 people. Different states, different accents. Fresh faces. One of them holding a printed plan of the platform. My platform. Ready to start the sprint? I ask. Everyone nods. I smile. The voice that was mine is now not just mine, it's become a movement.